Hey guys, I'm Bruce. I'm a noob. About a year and a half ago, I put out a video where I looked at 14 different model paints and compared them to a sample of real wartime Dunkelgrau or dark gray or Panzer gray to see which one was the most accurate. And that video got a lot of really good feedback from you guys. And it was pointed out, though, I missed several paints, so I'm going to fix that today, and we're going to look at 10 more. In that video, we looked at the Revell color system, which was introduced in 1925 to standardize German military colors, and we learned I can't pronounce really long German words. We learned that in 1937, the official standard for Panzers was Dunkelgrau as a base coat and about a 1/3 coverage of Dunkelbraun, or dark brown. In 1940, in the summer after the campaign in France, the standard changed to just Dunkelgrau, although some units had repainted prior to that campaign. We also explored several myths that often come up in online conversations about wartime German color, like the myth that every batch was different, and we debunked that by looking at the rigorous quality control process in use for manufactured German paint. The fact that lack of resources maybe led to variance in color, well, maybe very late in the war, but certainly not when Dunkelgrau was in use. And the old chestnut sun fade, that as soon as you drive a tank out of the barn, the color gets about 5 shades lighter, and we put that one soundly to bed as well. So we debunked the most common myths. We also introduced a very interesting rhetorical situation called the false analogy, and how dyed uniforms are not the same thing as painted metal tanks, and that you cannot post this picture with any credibility in discussions about German tank colors. So then we started to explore what color RAL 7021 actually was. What was Panzer Gray? And well, you know, we know it definitely was not sky blue, despite what you see a lot of postings look like on Facebook. Artistic, sure, but not accurate. We used a very good condition German medical box that I own, and we applied the Munsell color system using hue, chroma or saturation, and value or brightness to quantify what RAL 7021 is, and that's hue of 180, chroma 35, and value 10 if you're using hue, saturation, brightness in Photoshop. So it's dark gray blue. Now, if you lighten it up, it's actually kind of a dark gray blue green. So right in between blue and green on the Munsell hue spectrum. And so then we came up with our testing criteria where we're going to look at hue, saturation, and value, score them each from 1 to 3, and then give a total score for each of the 14 paints that we tested. And what were the results of the test? Well, perfect score, 9 out of 9 for MRP, the lacquer paint that was virtually indistinguishable from the original paint on the artifact we checked. AK 3rd Gen came out really, really strongly at 8 out of 9. And then Life Color, the original AK and mission models, did pretty well with 7 points. We had 3 honorable mentions: Model Master Schwarzgrau, Mr. Color 513, and AK Real Colors Dunkelgrau did pretty well, but they were a little off in terms of darkness or the hue. And 3 paints scored so poorly they're in the Hall of Shame. MiG, the old Tamiya German Gray, and Hataka all scored 3 out of 9. So will MRP stay at the top of the pack alone, or will one of the 10 contenders that have been recommended actually be able to match it for accuracy to original Dunkelgrau? Let's find out. So we'll start with Mr. Color Aqueous H401 Schwarzgrau. Off to a strong start, 8 out of 10. Hue was almost perfect. Saturation was really, really good. And it was just a little bit light, so value suffered 2 out of 3 there. But H401, great highlight color. Or if you just wanted to back it off a little bit with the darkness, you could certainly use this. Now, another aqueous color from Mr. Color H513 Dunkelgrau. So this one's trying to be Dunkelgrau. A bit light, a bit blue. Not too bad for saturation, so 6 out of 10, certainly not terrible, but yeah, a little bit on the blue side. And for our third Mr. Color Aqueous Paint H514 Grau, it actually does say World War II German tank on the bottle, so it's trying to be Dunkelgrau. Unfortunately, while the hue's not bad, it's got a bit of that blue-green going on, it is much too saturated and much too light, so only 5 points for H514. So, staying with the water-based paints, let's move on to Revell Aqua Color. And my buddy Hamilco Barkas swears by these and does really good work with them. I suck with spraying water-based paint. I had to use IPA to get these to spray properly, but that's my fault. Probably not a fault of the paint. Anthracite, hue 2, a little neutral, not a lot of color visible. Well, some color, but not a bunch. So 2 and 2 for hue and saturation. Value 2, it's a bit on the light side. So 6 out of 10, not bad. And Panzergrau. Now this one, obviously with that name, is trying to be RAL 7021. Unfortunately, it didn't do as well. It's a little on the blue side. Again, you can't make out a lot of the color, but what is there is wrong. And it's very light, so only 5 out of 10. And for our last water-based paint, we've got Vallejo's 70.862 Schwarzgrau. A very keen-eyed viewer noticed that the Vallejo color I tested in the first video, which is called German Gray, is in fact not Vallejo's attempt at REL 7021. In fact, it actually has a different REL number on the bottle. But Schwarzgrau is. It actually says REL 7021. So how did it do? Yeah, so-so, not great. The hue is quite blue. Saturation wasn't bad. You can make out the color pretty well, but it's the wrong color again. And it's a bit on the light side. So unfortunately, Vallejo's correct 7021 paint is actually 5 out of 9. So in the first video, I did test two Mr. Color lacquer paints. I missed H514 though. It does say World War II German AFV on the bottle, so they're trying to sell this as a Dunkelgrau. Unfortunately, it's anything but. It's quite blue, it's quite saturated, and it's quite light. So only 3 out of 10 for Mr. Color H514. What about Tamiya? You saw in the first video their German Gray, the venerable German Gray didn't do very well, much too light and neutral. Unfortunately, XF24 Dark Gray isn't much better. The only real difference is that it's maybe a little more blue, which is not good, and it's still quite light, although not quite as light as the old German Gray, so 3 out of 9. What about Rubber Black? Well, it's a nice dark color. It's a little too dark. It's not dramatically too dark, but just a bit too dark, so 2 out of 3 on value. Unfortunately, there's like no color there. It's basically a light black or just an off black. So only 1 out of 3 for hue and saturation, because you know what, there is almost no color either way. So 4 out of 9. And finally, LP27, their new lacquer paint. I was hoping they'd fix the problem from their German Gray when they reformulated these lacquer paints. Unfortunately, well, it's better. It's 5 out of 9, so that's good. The hue is a little bit blue. Saturation's not bad, but it is a bit light. Not as light as German Gray, but still a bit on the light side, so 5 out of 9. So here's where we finished off at the end of the first video with MRP, perfect 9 out of 9, AK 3rd Gen acrylic at 8 out of 9, and we've got the old school AK with life color emission model at 7 out of 9 points. So some really good choices there, whether you like lacquer paint or you like acrylic paint. So how did the new paint stack up? Well, we've only got one change to this this little award podium here, and of course that's with 401 aqueous from Mr. Color coming in at 8 out of 9. So another acrylic. So those of you that don't like lacquers have a lot of choices. If you like lacquers, you're kind of stuck. But yeah, congratulations to Mr. Color. And we've got 2 new additions to the honorable mentions category with scores of 6 out of 9. We've got Revell, Aqua, Anthracite, and we've got Mr. Color Aqueous 513. So we have the lacquer 513 in there already, so obviously they're very consistent with their color formulation as they move from lacquer to acrylic paint. So did any of our 10 new paints make it into the Hall of Shame with Ammo, Tamiya, and Hitaka? Well, one of them did, and drumroll please, it was yeah, Mr. Color Aqueous 514, not even close to Dunkelgrau. I'm going to give Tamiya a pass, though, for Dark Gray and Rubber Black, because they don't market those paints as German Gray, Panzer Gray, Dunkelgrau paints. So they're just off on the side laughing at the others, and we'll give them a free ride. So there we have it, folks. I had a lot of hope that some of these new paints might unseat or at least tie MRP. If for no other reason that you know, MRP is not the easiest paint to get depending on where you live in the world. If you're in the States, I know there's 1 or 2 places that sell it. Canada, virtually impossible. And I know there's some other folks in other parts of the world that have trouble. So it'd be great, wouldn't it, if there was some kind of like way to mix common paint that you could already buy to make accurate Panzer Gray? That gives me an idea.